I've been told to never judge a book by its cover, but Orbis Aerden, Reign of the Accursed, sets a very distinct tone when you first look at it. At first glance, I thought it was going to be a horror game. Evil monsters, and you're the innocents getting caught up in the middle of it to, well, violate or do the violating. Yet, things only got stranger from there. Much stranger. The game is by Dead-Eyed Shade Game, a dramatic name, mostly given how this is their only game, though it does appear to be a massive passion project by the creator. The Kickstarter was released in the forgotten year of 2015 and miraculously only has a silver seller on DTRPG even though it came out in 2017-2019-ish. But what is this game? Well, remember what I said about it being a bit different than you think. Orbis is a game where you are the accursed, immortal, nocturnal, bloodthirsty vampires. Okay, you're vampires. However, this game isn't set in London or New York, but its own setting. It's a Victorian era without the benefits of industrialization or automation. It's hyper-gothic horror, something straight out of a nightmare almost. But the truth is that Orbis Aerden is the best Legacy of Kain RPG currently available. Well, Legacy of Kain, except Kain is high on skooma and several narcotics. Several things about the setting will feel very familiar, but always something somewhere that forces you to do a double take. Well, of course, there's the Society of Horrors, which is the vampire mafia, because their actual job as half demigods is to make sure reality-eating monsters don't eat reality because their grand uncle drank the cosmic Kool-Aid. Yes, there's a secret war between the vampire families, but no, this is a far more complex and interlocked, with its own set of problems to work within. Is there a masquerade? Of course there is! The masquerade is also sentient and kills you for being discovered. Orbis sets the stage and gives you a very smug look for everything. And you know what? I read the entire goddamn lore section. It's great. But what about the game though? The do or die system is a 2d10 plus modifiers versus a target number. Yet we're not looking to be complicated here. From there you have a characteristics and aptitudes. Characteristics are numerous but simple to understand. While there isn't a ton of aptitudes, they all serve a purpose, with a handy roll chart for most skills on how to actually resolve it. Whenever you do anything though, it's characteristic plus aptitude plus 2d10. Everything else is usually just a way to find a difficulty or modify that roll. Surprisingly simple system for such a high concept. So how do I make a character? Well, easy. Follow this chart. It's really that simple. Everyone starts as a mortal, your initial attributes and skills followed by a psychological template. So you may be a captivating enchanter or a host of other combinations. But you'll also have some personality traits which award you XP for playing with. So Lord Byron wants to be dramatic and manipulating and seductive. But then we move on to our archetypical template, something who we actually are, such as an empath or something far more sinister. And then we end up on our philosophy. No stats, no attributes, our final, often crowning personality trait. And we're a dark idealist. All of these things feed us personality traits, but also make sure we're building our character's nature as we go through. Somewhat contradictory characters can work, but then you have to worry about your higher self, which is effectively your spirit alter ego that loves you and hates you and it's trying to take over. It's very complicated. After this, we'll need to select our loyalty and our subclass of that family. So we can be a Vorkai gentleman, adding even more attributes to our characters and powers. This leads us to our drive and the chessboard. A drive is what keeps us going, our ultimate goal, a player-chosen objective that they want to succeed at, usually involving beating the shit out of someone you don't like or stealing their shit. The chessboard is kind of a greater influence over the city they are in, how much of a power player they are, how much money do they have, how many goons do they employ, and so on. It's perfectly valid to play someone who's just better at the great game, just as much as Giant Killer Deathman McMurder, and with 75 XP to customize your character, a starting PC is really hardly a pushover, and can usually have numerous options which flesh them out. Or just invest in combat stances and abilities and blast, let the bodies hit the floor as you dismember people. Speaking about that, what about combat? That's always the fun part, right? You have action points, 2 by default unless you're huffing blood. Actions aren't too complicated to understand, but now we get to weapons. Most weapons have a power rating and a lethality. Power is the number of d10s rolled, while lethality is a flat bonus to each of those die. Most basic attacks against enemy are going to be melee or range versus acrobatics or a parry. If you succeed at hitting your enemy, you roll your power dice. If you manage to beat their wound threshold score equal to their armor and con score, you deal 1 wound. If you beat it by 10, you deal 2, 23, and so on. This does lead to what I like to call explosive combat situations. Let's say we've been hit for 2 wounds. If we take wounds equal to our vitality score, we're completely out of the fight. But hey, each wound we take will also have numerous penalties associated with it. Is it a laceration, a fracture, puncture, and of course we can always be lit on fucking fire. It's a nasty death spiral, a very dangerous one, but we luckily can pull out of it if we survive the fight. But then we get into dismemberment. Density is how thick a character is, but if we take density wounds in any area, we lose that part or it's crippled. Sufficiently trained fighters don't need to fight you necessarily, they can just decapitate you. Combat optimized characters can kill most threats. Mixed in with powers and abilities, an individual battle-hardened veteran Accursed is a complete nightmare. Combat is fucking dangerous, and the game loves showing it off to you. But what happens when we play a hyper-lethal game? You stop playing fair as quickly as possible. Go for the heart, use your power, swamp them in numbers, or just burn their house down. From there, the game is about trying to maximize your effectiveness in your chosen niche. This game does encourage specialization, and being the best in something is usually more important than being okay at a few things. Use the right gear, get the right items, hell, just invest in a comically oversized war form and rip people in half. Is it a perfect game? No. Layout is mediocre in some areas, forcing some flip-throughs to find exactly what you're looking for. Many mechanics are little values of adjusting +1s and +2s, but its flaws are outshined by genuinely interesting ideas and fascinating executions, often literally. Even the setting does a lovely job of setting a distinct atmosphere without becoming great value World of Darkness. I recommend at least taking a look at it. I don't think I've done it justice due to the amount of stuff in this game, but it's fairly cheap and serves as a good place to farm for ideas when needed. And you know, I can go over a lot of bad and reliable games, but Orbis is a special kind of game that is genuinely interesting, but a very large buy-in as well. And maybe that's alright. My name is Notepad, and this was Orbis Aerden, Reign of the Accursed. If you like what I do here, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. Many thanks to the Vorkai gentlemen who continue to bankroll my midnight rant. Godspeed and good luck.